very quickly about AI Mind. We are large-scale European action, identifying your risk later in life to develop dementia if you belong to the group of mild cognitive impairment. Mild cognitive impairment is no disease, but it is a little bit more than usually you would expect by aging, your memory lost or other cognitive functions which would decline. And in this group of mild cognitive impaired people, we know retrospectively that we have 50% of patients, future patients, which will develop dementia. That is the background. And the prediction by doctors is very bad, meaning that if you are suffering from these circumstances, you will be repeatedly investigated by your doctor, mainly by the primary care practitioner, and then you or he or she is awaiting that you are further declining. And if you are further declining, then the doctors usually state, now you are demented, and then it is too late for intervention. This is a huge global problem. It's in fact bigger than COVID as a problem. Today, in neurology or neurodegenerative diseases are the main reason for death. They are more than cancer. And this is economically seen also a challenge, because we know that the care of not only the direct medical costs, but as well the indirect cost by being taken care of your family members, mainly in these circumstances of dementia, there is a loss of working force, which is significant. So nobody is what should I say, reluctant with regard to identify that this is a challenge, but there is in Europe threat that it needs 8 to 12 years today to be diagnosed with dementia, from your first symptoms to the final state of dementia. And that is true in the northern countries as well as in the southern countries of Europe. Meaning the work of doctors is not sufficient enough to meet the explosion of dementia. We are last week informed about that we are now past 8 billion people on the earth, and we will are expected to be 11.5 billion in the next 15 years. That means no state will be able to cover costs related to the care of dementia. I always want to underline it, because when we are intellectually discussing threats by AI or whatever, then we have to face reality that a healthcare system only driven by human beings without artificial intelligence help will not be financeable and will break together, and our what should I say, political unstable developments in diverse countries will continue, and it will be a very uncertainty in human being interactions. That is the real threat. I don't see a threat in AI. This is just what I told you. And today it's not happening anything, as I mentioned, in mild cognitive impairment or subjective cognitive impairment. And this project helps and wishes to achieve a prediction of your neural network analysis EEG-based, in addition with genetic information, and then cognitive digitalized information put together into an algorithm with the team of Ernest is in fact developing. And then we want to be able to identify you in the risk group, and then we wish to intervene, because here is another challenge that we know already without any further medical development. We know that we would be able to prevent 40% of all today existing dementias if we would have known early enough. Only by classical interventions, lifestyle changes, and diabetes, hypercholesterol, other cardiovascular risk factors, by intervening and treating them more aggressively, we could have prevented 40% of the dementias. So there is no doubt that classical interventions should take place earlier, and today are undertreated. That is what we are doing. We are first developing an algorithm, a deep learning algorithm for identifying your neural networks. And why is this important? This is important because there is no technology on the market which would be able to reflect on today on neuronal function. We have a lot of technologies which are later in the biochemical process around proteins, water, metabolism, and so on. But only the MEG or EEG technology is able to really reflect what is going on a synaptic level. So that is a renaissance. And then of the EEG technology. Because why did we choose this technology? Yes, because it is globally accessible, it's affordable, and it is non-harmful. And we also think that when it comes to AI, it will not only be a help in facing our Western world challenges, it has also to be a global health effort, because it doesn't help that Norwegians are healthy and the rest of the world is sick. We will not any longer be able to cope neither with climate change nor with global changes in what should I say, political uncertain situations, because we need to challenge together the threat of our future. And it makes no sense developing an even more exclusive technology, which is payable by very few countries and which might be very fancy on the medical market, but which is not to be used everywhere. And EEG is usable in Ghana, and it's usable in Southeast Asia, and it is accessible as well in the northern countries. That was clear the reason why we went for that technology. And then we are again introducing cutting-edge genetic and protein markers, biomarkers, which are as well worldwide at the moment not accessible. And it is as well a fact that it is digitalized cognitive testing is as well not accessible. So what we try with this project is not only to facing a new method and help for doctors, it is also an innovation in using long-time existing possibilities into a daily routine. And when the former speakers both came up with very interesting aspects. I would add on that the threat of AI, in my understanding, is at least completely overreached. As far as I remember still, then we believed for many thousand years that the Earth was not round, and I guess this was a huge bias, and we believed that. And we were not concerned that we were wrongly believing. And then someone came up and started some experience and remembered some astrologists, in fact, from the ancient times, and you made systematic observations and came to a different result. And I guess our bias, Hannes was very nicely explaining all kinds of bias, but this is not necessarily only a machine bias. This is, of course, the bias of the people who train and who give feedback to the machine. So it's my bias. And I would say that it is an incomplete idealization that we would ever be without bias. All kinds of limited insights is biased because I either do not have access to the right technology or I am not understanding the technology well enough. And this is really the challenge in introducing AI. That is the lack of knowledge in the population. And we have to do something very quickly to educate all medical doctors, at least in the field I'm working, and nurses and health providers. Maybe the biggest threat for introducing this technology is, in fact, the leadership, because often leaders are far away from daily work and also daily understanding, and they have competence then in governance, but they do not have necessarily technical insights into what is real threat and what not. So I think it would be also good if Nora could start education and giving courses for health providers, administrators. I think that is very, very important at this time point. So when introducing what Anne said, and that is really important when it comes to AI and data use, then it is really this technology will revolutionize the complete workflow of medical procedures. It starts how we collect data. It will be that the patients will be empowered. The patients will have much more control, I guess, in the future by legal authorities about the rights of how are my data used. The ownership will be taken away from the hospitals to the primary owner. I think that it's a very important emancipation of patients. It will force medical systems to employ other professions like AI specialists, like physicists, like mathematicians, and so on. It will be a multi-sectoral work place. It will not any longer be dominated by monoculture. That is also very important and positive. It will give you insight into a new kind of communication, and it will all the trustworthiness and that might be, I can go to this, the trustworthiness and the accountability will demand on data governance requirements, and it expect that politicians and healthcare providers in this interaction and legal aspects are much more controlled. And I'm pretty convinced that in a Norwegian system, for example, with big global actors like the Norwegian Veritas, TÜV, and so on, all these very experienced notifying body will be in place and will make requirements very clear for good data handling. So finally, I would say I'm much more afraid meeting a single doctor with all the bias and with all the limited experiences, and the combination about a machine in addition to a doctor would make my life, at least, I guess, much more secure. Thank you.